All right, all right, all right. We are live. It is a big day, the Xbox One reveal edition of the Press Row Hangout. We're excited to be here. I am Rich Grisham, and with me, as always, is the great Brian Weedi from Costa Padre. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks. A fun day for us covering, I think, gaming, even though definitely a mixed reaction out there in regards to the Xbox One, and then also to the big EA Sports reveal of the day, and how that ties into everything going forward for this next generation.
I fully expected there to be a lot of cynicism and a lot of snarkiness, and there has been a lot of that. I think, though, for sports fans, there's actually a lot to potentially like about what's going on here, and of course we'll get into all of that stuff. But let's just kick it off. Let's talk just a little bit about the actual machine itself. So we got some details today about the Xbox One. It's going to be quite an impressive machine. It's going to have a very large hard drive, basically a half a terabyte. It's going to have a Blu-ray. It's got a new controller that appears to be pretty interesting. Certainly looks solid. It has a couple of things that people like, including like some extra sensitive feedback on the triggers and things like that.
Improved D-pad.
Yeah, well, everybody wants the improved D-pad. We'll see how good that actually is. But that's the hardware. So my first question to you, Brian, is what do you think about the hardware, the machine? How does it look, and the specs? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's about what everybody expected. I mean, there were enough leaks in the months leading up to today to kind of have a feel for where the console was going to sit. Now, it's the practices that Microsoft would enact that was more in question. With both the PS4 and Sony's PS4 and the Xbox One, I think really you're getting a nice upgrade in terms of hardware, and you're getting things that people are going to take advantage of socially, and in areas like with Microsoft's ability to switch between television and gaming seamlessly, and all these other nice features. The question is whether that really makes it worthwhile for people to jump up and pay $500 or whatever it's going to end up being. When the games, we're not really sure. They can talk about how great the games are going to be, but really there's nothing proving that yet. How much of a jump that's going to be for the games over what we have right now. Whether you can justify the purchase of a new system, especially if you don't agree with some of the practices that the companies are taking right now.
So, are you a hardware tech guy? Like, does specific amounts of RAM, 8 gigs of RAM, get you excited? Does that mean a lot to you? Okay.
It doesn't get me excited. I'll tell you, I'm big into electronics and technology and stuff.
Me too.
Digging down to the specs of everything is not really that important. It's like with my cell phone, I'll look at the specs and stuff, but I'm not getting excited, because generally once you get to a certain point, for what I do anyway, you've kind of maxed out what you need. Now, obviously, greater RAM is a huge deal for the next-gen consoles. That's a big part of building out the games, and having that the ability to access multiple applications at the same time, things of that nature. But do I get enthused about seeing numbers and all that from what's inside the box? Not really, because it just comes down to what the games are going to produce, and we won't really see that for maybe a few more weeks or even longer.
I have long liked the Xbox 360 controller more than the PlayStation 3 controller.
I'm with you on that.
And I think that they really have done a nice job with the Xbox One controller. Like you mentioned, it's got a better D-pad. It's got smaller control sticks. It has a view button, which it looks interesting. And it's got what they're calling triple shot face buttons that look a little nicer and require less force to use. Vibration monitors, those impulse triggers, as well as a better battery compartment. So one thing that to me clearly stands out as a positive from the system itself is the controller.
First thing I looked at was for share button, like the PS4.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that, but I believe it does have. They talked about DVR capabilities and some form of editing and sharing coming. Although I think the PS4 nailed it with the share button. I think that's a big part, especially for sports gamers, of what's going to happen in this next generation. So, the controller's not too different from what we had. They're going to
Right.
talk about all the little, minor improvements that might add up to something. But until we get our hands on it, really get playing with the game, it's hard to say, how much it's going to benefit us.
But you know what? This is a sports video game show. And one thing that was very clear today was that sports video games are very important to Microsoft and the
And
Xbox.
not even just sports video games. How about sports in general?
Yes,
With the
exactly.
NFL, and they showed off the ESPN app again, and
Yep.
fantasy stats. But yeah, sports obviously is a big part of what Microsoft is doing here for this next generation.
And the biggest part of that was the Ignite engine, the brand new engine from EA Sports that will power a lot of their next generation games. And we're going to get into a lot of the specifics. We'll get into a lot about a lot of things. But really, from a sports game perspective, this is really there's a lot of good stuff for us here. And the Ignite engine was the first in a series of things that certainly have me interested. So you did a great write-up on the Ignite engine on Pasta Padre this evening. So just dive right into it. What does the Ignite engine mean to you, Brian?
Yeah, and I think really for us into sports games, we have a totally different perspective on this Microsoft conference than
Yes.
maybe a lot of general gamers did. So I think we're going to get into some of the things that have turned people, the backlash against it right now. But as far as sports gaming goes, it was really interesting because, yeah, we saw how prominent sports is for Microsoft and for the Xbox One. But then here with the EA Sports and what they're rolling out with the new engine, I had talked about in past shows that what I thought we would see based on E3s in previous years was, technology. We're going to see something where they showed off last time, procedural awareness, AI improvements, and graphics. That's essentially what we got today, which AI improvements is part of the Ignite engine, and then you have now I'm blanking on it, but you have atmosphere according to the living worlds. You have the atmosphere and the emotion, and then you have a player movement engine, which is gonna it's gonna hopefully make things look more real. Now the trailer they showed was all pre-rendered. That
Right.
was not running on the Xbox One. So that's important to point out because we've gone over this. I did not think that they would show another
I know.
trailer like that because that completely set them up for failure for this current generation we're on by showing off that Madden trailer in 2005, I believe, when
Yep.
that hit. And expectations.
Infamous.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is I was told by at least one, it might have been two, people working at EA at the time that they didn't want to show that trailer necessarily because they were worried that what they actually had been working on was better than the trailer. And then, of course, we got Madden 06, which, and every Madden since, which showed was never even close to being the case. We're still not even really there now in some respects. But I saw a quote today from Andrew Wilson saying that, we've exceeded what you've seen today. And my alarm bells went off making a statement like that, especially with a trailer like that, where they're showing off, CG essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what they're trying to get across is that living world element and more fluid movement that's more realistic. They're trying to get that across in the trailer, but that's not actually the game. So we're gonna have to find out whether that translates the same way they say it's going to. And I don't think you can really trust it yet. We learned, going into the last generation that you can't really trust what they say or what they show. They have to prove it. That being said, I think general reaction to that trailer wasn't that good, which is kind of surprising considering it was pre-rendered. I think it's just a lot of skepticism, and I don't fault people for that.
Well, one of the things that was most noticeable about this reveal, similar to the Sony reveal, that there was not a lot of gameplay or games overall. Sports did take center stage, not only sports games, but just sports in and of itself. As a lot of people, as we all really know, the last thing that is really appointment television or appointment viewing anymore is live sports. So I think it's a very smart thing for Microsoft to be doing, to be focusing on sports as games with the partnership with EA, because EA is sports games, save for one or two titles. To partner with the NFL and to integrate just sports, live sports, and sports video games and their convergence into the system. And as a rabid sports gamer, I love that because it speaks to me. I mean, sports is a major part of my, my personal life. I love sports, all of them. I love sports video games, obviously. And while other people make jokes about it, oh, it's just a sports thing. To me, that's fantastic. It shows that that is where their focus is, and it gives me hope that the experiences that they're going to be delivering are going to be compelling. And so I look at all of that, even though there's a lot more questions being generated than answers being given. I look at that overall focus as a very positive thing for people like me and you.
Yeah, I was actually following the last couple days. It wasn't just today, but 2 days ago, Microsoft made a deal with Major League Soccer. Now they made a deal with the NFL. They have the ESPN app. They're advertising the fantasy stats aspect of it. And when they started at the conference, before we knew about the NFL stuff, they had the ESPN app up and they had a basketball game up and they were showing fantasy stats. And my thought was, yeah, but it's not NFL. That's where fantasy interest lies.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't really know about where they're going with that, how much it's going to cost, what it's actually going to entail. But yeah, it shows the commitment to sports, and then rolling out EA Sports is not only just because it's important, and we saw that when guys like us pointed out at the PS4 conference that wow, there were no sports games shown, that because it actually matters. A lot of people do buy consoles with sports games in mind.
Yeah, I mean, sports games every year, 2, 3, or 4 of them are in the top 10 of sales, and they are yearly, right? So it's guaranteed content for a machine, unless you're the Wii U, in which case it's not guaranteed content. And of course, everybody who's watching this show right now and who listens to this show and visits Pasta Padre, that's what they're after. So to me, Microsoft is clearly positioning themselves as a destination for guys who love sports and sports video games, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I guess the question is, did they sell it today? And based on the reaction around social media and even comments on my site, I'm not sure they really did. And I think a lot of it is about the pre-rendering of the trailer and past past trouble with trust in that sense.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And then other issues with Xbox overshadowing the actual sports stuff that was shown. It's been an interesting dynamic today because I thought it started pretty well for the Xbox and for the Xbox One, and then it kind of took a nosedive after a couple hours. And my initial feeling, again, as somebody who finds sports to be that important to me, was I liked what I saw out of the Xbox One, but I don't know how I would choose between that and the PS4 right now, because the PS4 to me says it's more of a gaming-centric device, and the Xbox is more of a multimedia device, and I like both. I like these multimedia aspects of the Xbox One. That's something I would play around with for sure. Well, but it really depends, and we've got now some sort of exclusive agreements necessarily with between EA and Microsoft that'll be delivering exclusive content, and where does that leave the PS4? I'm not sure.
Well, let me ask you this: did you get both a 360 and a PS3 when they launched?
360 initially, yeah, first day. PS3 I got, I think, a couple months in. I think it was hard to find at first, and also I didn't feel like I needed both at the time. It was just kind of repeating the same content. I wasn't big on whatever exclusive games they had at the time. And then, it was also the price. What was it, $600 or $500?
It was really expensive.
$500, I think, for the lower end model. And I may be wrong on this. I don't remember if I spent $500 and $600. It was just a hell of a lot. And it was harder to justify at the time. And I think that's, again, you're going to have that choice being made this time between people, especially since they're coming out, essentially around the same time. We don't know the dates yet, whereas it was about a year between the 360 and PS3.
Yeah, these will clearly be basically, for all intents and purposes, launching at the same time.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the Ignite for a minute. I'm just going to read a couple things right off that you posted right from your site. So it blends new technology with the best rendering, runtime physics, animation, intelligence, locomotion, and online systems into one powerful new engine. Athletes will possess human-like intelligence for advanced decision-making. Players will have the agility required to change speeds and directions with true athletic motion, and living worlds will make the game experience as rich and dynamic as real-world stadiums and arenas. Big words. Do you believe them?
That's a good question. Not completely.
And that's not meant to be cynical either.
No, I mean,
really not.
Not completely, because if you go back and you watch the previous E3s for the 360 and PS3, you'll hear talk just like that.
Absolutely.
And I remember at the time thinking, wow, this sounds amazing. And then I learned that, no, it doesn't always turn out that way. So now I absolutely take a more cynical approach, because I think that's what history has proven you should do. Get up your hopes too high and you're more likely to be disappointed. I'm trying to be more of a realist here and say I think there will be obvious enhancements here that people are going to appreciate. Will it succeed to the level EA is talking about right now? I doubt it. But I mean, maybe 2-3 years down the line that's the case.
Here's something that I've been thinking a lot about recently, and especially today. There are a lot less sports games than there used to be. EA is no longer making games for the Wii U. They have delivered very compelling experiences in the last couple of years with FIFA and NHL. And I mean, I'm a fan of Madden. I know a lot of people disagree with me. I think Madden was very compelling this year. Their recent track record, removing NBA Live, which is a whole other discussion that we will have, their recent track record with their games has been very good. And they have also significantly increased the number of people working on these games. I know at Tiburon, Cam Weber coming in when he did has really ramped up the number of people. Just this past week, I had a series of 3 interviews with various Madden developers, and several of them are guys that weren't on the team just a couple of years ago that were brought in specifically to do things. This is and we all know the FIFA and the NHL team, and the FIFA team in particular, just like delivers. They've got a large team dedicated to a lot of stuff. So this is a very long-winded way of me saying, I actually, Ignite engine aside, I have some faith that by them choosing to say we are going to launch with FIFA, Madden, NBA, and UFC, I have faith in at least 3 of those 4 titles that they are going to do a good job and they are going to know what they're doing. Whether that means that it's going to be Madden NFL 25 with all of the features that it has on the PS3 and Xbox 360 but just looks better, or whether it's a different game, I have a feeling that they're actually going to kind of do the opposite of what they did at the start of the last generation. I think that's wrong.
I think that's a fair approach to take too. I don't think they're gonna. Of course, they just did a pre-rendered trailer, so I can't say that they're not going to repeat the same mistakes again after that. But I've been told along the way, really, they've had next-gen teams started building next-gen teams before 2011.
And that is very, very, very different than it was before. I've spoken with developers, you have too, who were there, and they got caught with their pants down. They just didn't know what they didn't know, and it was too late for them to do a whole lot.
Hopefully not literally, but figuratively.
I'm sure there were pants down at some point somewhere, but we should probably not discuss that.
That's an imagery, I don't want to get into here. I think it's more interesting to me to see what happens now. Like, I feel ready for this next generation.
Me too.
It's been long enough where we're at now, and so even if it's it's not going to be perfect, we know that. But even if it's different in kind of a fun way, a more dynamic way, a more exciting way, that can be a good thing. They just have to, I think, like you said, they have to nail a lot of the features. They can't go in empty, emptying the cabinets again and starting over in that sense. Because that was probably one of the biggest mistakes. I mean, the gameplay obviously had major issues, but going in without the features that people expected was, crushed them initially.
The other thing that was interesting is that with EA Sports taking such a prominent role in the reveal, it shows to me a real dependence, a need for Microsoft, for EA to do right by them.
It's a role reversal, by the way. Really going into this last generation, Microsoft didn't have the greatest relationship with EA. It was Sony, and Sony kind of stuck with EA then. Now they were more of a stronger partner for FIFA than anything, but going in, Microsoft and EA had their issues going in, and Microsoft had their own sports games a few years prior to then. Unfortunately, they didn't continue baseball. That would have been nice, but yeah, that's another thing we should get into sometime. Is as we look at which console kind of appeals more to the sports gamers, what if baseball is important to you? Then you have to be PS4 at this point. We don't even know if there's going to be a baseball game on Xbox One, but. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic just kind of to follow how this all evolves. And that's why I found it fascinating to see this Microsoft relationship with EA evolving over ever since the rumor kind of started in February to following every little kind of hint at something going on behind the scenes. And then that developed today, not in full exclusivity, like we had kind of talked about the idea of, but a partnership like that's going to deliver some exclusive content. Probably marketing wise, it's going to pay dividends for both EA and Microsoft working together.
So here's what we know so far about the EA Sports Microsoft strategic partnership.
Yeah,
that's
you want me to go? Yeah, okay.
We know nothing, right? Yeah. I mean,
we know one thing.
We know a little bit of a FIFA Ultimate Team exclusive, but I mean, so that's all we know so far. Clearly, there has to be a lot more to this, and as we've sort of been thinking, it appears to be headed in the Ultimate Team direction, because that's really, without really killing their relationship with Sony, that's really the only way they could go.
I think it's important to point out, though, that doesn't mean exclusive Ultimate Team to Xbox. Because number one, that EA makes way too much money off that. That's their money maker mode. They're not making that exclusive, but we're talking about extra content. Different card packs, or maybe a different mode to add into Ultimate Team in some form or fashion. We don't really know yet, but they're not taking Ultimate Team out of the PS4 for any chance of that happening.
So what do you think? Do you think it'll be exactly the same thing for UFC? NBA and Madden, or will it be different sorts of things that they do for those different kinds of games with the exclusivity between EA and Microsoft?
It's a tough question at this point. I think I would not expect necessarily everything to be Ultimate Team related. That's really all I can say about it. From little things I've heard, there's different stuff that's going to be attached to this relationship. That's gonna it's going to evolve over time. But definitely, there's that marketing tie-in. We've already seen Microsoft, promoting Madden on their social media accounts. Microsoft promoting EA through a sweepstakes of theirs. So there's a tie there that's that's going to be around for multiple years. How far they're able to push that is a question that I'm not really sure about at this point.
So if you had to, if you're Microsoft, what would you want that to be, knowing that they can't only go, EA just can't go on Microsoft platform?
If it was timed exclusivity, that would be perfect for Microsoft.
For a game or for a mode?
Oh, for a game. That would be ideal. I think they'd pay huge money.
But we know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, we know that's not going to happen. Well,
so realistically, what do you think?
95% sure that's not going to happen. They've only confirmed the games are coming to both consoles. They haven't confirmed, of course, that they're going to release at the same time, because they don't have release dates yet. What I would look for, what are you asking? What are you asking then?
If you're Microsoft, realistically speaking, knowing that you can't get a a you can't get it a
Okay.
week
Well,
or
you
two
have to
before.
create. They're looking to create the perception, like we talked about earlier, that this is a sports, centric console.
Yes, yes,
So whatever that is, it's going to be in marketing. After every Madden trailer, or commercial, there's going to be the Xbox logo.
right.
After every FIFA commercial, there's going to be the Xbox logo. Um, and then you're going to have, some exclusivity in terms of modes or extra downloadable content, that kind of stuff. But again, it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to start to create that perception that, hey, sports games are a better, are better value over at Microsoft with their Xbox One than they are with the PS4. If they can carve that out, then I think it's a success for Microsoft, and for EA, they're going to get benefits in terms of the marketing and stuff that they appreciate.
All right, so let's talk about the games. 4 games confirmed at or near launch, whenever that launch is, because of course we still don't know when it's going to launch or how much it's going to be. We know there will be UFC, there will be Madden NFL 25, there will be FIFA, and there will be NBA Live 14. So let's just go around the horn. Let's start with UFC.
Yeah.
Were you surprised by this?
I was when we found out yesterday that it was going to be there. I was surprised because we just got the news that it wasn't going to be out before April of next year. So once we found out about UFC being involved today, I knew it was probably going to be about a year framework for the games they showed today. UFC is a ways off. Yeah, it's going to be probably April or May release next year. We didn't learn anything new about the game really. It was just, again, they're talking about their engine, and we saw some pre-rendered footage. It doesn't really tell us anything about it, but I think there's a lot of reason for optimism with UFC because EA MMA I thought was pretty excellent for a first attempt. I don't know how much they have left of that. They started working on the sequel until Strikeforce got bought out. So they had the assets and the engine that could have been tweaked to fit UFC, but now they're going next gen with this. So I'm not sure how much they were able to benefit from having that already in the can, but and taking this long suggests that they weren't able to utilize a whole lot of it. But UFC, I think there's a lot of reason for optimism. I think people are looking forward to what EA does with that one.
I am not a UFC fan at all. Not even
You should
really.
really go back and play UFC 2000. Did you play UFC 2009?
No, I did not.
Even if you're not a fan, I think that's one of those games that surprised me in the sense of I wasn't a huge UFC fan at the time, but it's one of those where I played it and it blew me away in terms of fun factor in a way I didn't expect, and then I started to become a bigger fan of the sport.
Well, that's where I'm going with this, which is I'm also not a big boxing fan. I was years ago a big fan of heavyweights during its sort of the Mike Tyson era heyday, right? And I loved Fight Night on the one of the it wasn't a launch title, but it was a near launch title on the 360. Really loved it. Loved the latest Fight Night as well. What would the UFC game have to do to appeal to me and many gamers like me who are sports gamers but just aren't into UFC?
Well, I remember back with UFC 2009, how they hooked in the more casual gamers was the demo, and it was just a blast to play. So the demo, first of all, was important there. But what we have here now is, this could be the Fight Night of this generation, because no game is going to look better graphically, especially at least in the sports area, than a game that features only 2 characters at once. That's why Fight Night looked so amazing years ago. Fight Night Round 3. So what you have to look for again is it's going to have that pull in a sense for graphically, and then it just has to be fun, and the controls have to be accessible. UFC from THQ was not exactly accessible, but it was fun because you still had the possibility of getting a knockout or a submission. That changed kind of with the second entry. They made it much more complicated. I'm not sure UFC is really going to reach out to a huge crowd. Even Fight Night didn't really do that. It was just more appreciated and kind of sold the system on its capabilities.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Madden NFL 25 confirmed. Do you expect a full-fledged version that is on par with, from a feature set, the current gen and looks better, or are you expecting something totally different? Whereas perhaps the on-field gameplay is more attuned to what they're talking about with atmosphere and with better physics and with better artificial intelligence, and just maybe not all of the connected franchise modes or things like that. What's your gut tell you on what Madden NFL 25 is going to look like on the Xbox One?
Well, it better display some of the stuff from the Ignite engine. If it doesn't, that's already a pretty big failure.
Well, yeah, I think it's a safe assumption
Yeah.
that it will.
Yeah. So besides that, I think it'll be pretty similar to the current version. I don't think EA can go into this saying just a few days ago, look, we brought back owner mode, we brought back this feature, we brought back this feature. Are you hyped now? And then turn around with a next gen game that doesn't have those things. I don't see how they could do that and get away with it this time.
Yeah, but on the
so
other
I think
hand,
feature-wise, it's going to be fairly similar.
but on the other hand, no matter what, Madden NFL 25 on the Xbox One and the PS4 will not sell nearly as many copies as it will on the 360 and the PS3. Not even close. I mean, they will sell, what, 5-6 million on the PS3 360. They may sell 500,000 on the new console. So from a public relations standpoint, it would not necessarily be a good idea.
It's more important. It's more important than the sales numbers for this version, though, because if you look back at the first games for Madden and NBA 2K and MLB 2K and NCAA football and all those back at the start of this last generation, they influenced perceptions going forward throughout the whole generation.
Agreed.
Madden 06, if Madden 07 had been great, Madden 06 still would have influenced negativity throughout the years. So if they're looking at it as we only have to figure out something to appease a few 100,000 people, and then we'll build up to something better the next year. That's going to be trouble for them because you can't just recover like that. If you let down these are the hardcore people, the hardcore gaming people who are buying the brand new console right as it comes out. So if you upset those people, they generally will turn away from you and they may not give you another chance. So you have to put out a strong effort right away, or else you may lose them for 5 years.
Again, I'm anticipating something really special, frankly, from Madden and FIFA, which is the next game to talk about. FIFA is another one. And I'm assuming that Madden and FIFA and NBA will all be, if not launch day games.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming Madden and FIFA are absolutely launch day games. And
I think they and live have to be. Yeah.
I mean, if live isn't, it's got to be within the first. It's got to be in 2013, right?
It's got to be the same. It's got to be the same day if NBA 2K is out. Is out. So
right. So
I don't think they can afford to wait on that one.
So FIFA to me is almost the most intriguing because when I think atmosphere, I think Premier League soccer. I think MLS soccer. I think
World Cup and
chanting, right? All of that kind of stuff. I think about the very dynamic interactions of the players. One of the big differences between a soccer match and a football game is the interactions and the emotions of players are much more on display in soccer because there's no helmet, there's no shoulder pads, it's just the guys out there. And again, as we talk about the crowds and the coaches and stuff like that. So to me, that has the most potential for I put the disc in the tray, I turn it on, and within a couple of minutes, I'm like, whoa, this really is a next generation game that I'm playing, something I've never seen before. And so I'm, again, based upon the tremendous track record of the FIFA team, the size of the FIFA team, the importance of FIFA. Let's face it, if nothing else is coming out of EA Sports, if they have FIFA, they're going to be doing okay. Because of all that, I'm expecting huge things from FIFA 14 for the launch.
That's the one series I think you can go in trusting that they're not going to screw it up. They can't afford to. It's the biggest game in the world. biggest sports game at least. I'm not sure if it tops Call of Duty. I don't remember, but it's right up there if it doesn't.
It has to generate more revenue just because there's a lot more opportunity for revenue with the Ultimate Team
Mm-hmm.
stuff that I don't think Call of Duty has.
Yeah,
I say that like I know the facts. I don't know.
Well, they have their own
facts.
subscription service.
Yeah.
But it's that's one of the surprising things about this whole Microsoft deal is that FIFA got lumped in because FIFA worldwide is so incredibly strong, and worldwide, internationally, that's where the PS3 has been stronger.
That's right.
FIFA sells more on the PS3, so being connected to Microsoft is a pretty huge deal. And I don't see, it's hard to say what's the upgrade going to be on FIFA current gen versus next gen player movement. Obviously, I mean those engine improvements they talked about today make a lot of sense. Maybe more sense for FIFA even than it does the other games.
Yeah, because when I was speaking with the FIFA developers a couple of weeks ago, they were really talking a lot about the intelligence of the players, knowing based upon different situations where to go and how to react and how to play defense or how to get a position for things. The technology.
Okay, there. You're back. You cut out on my end for a second. Keep going.
All of those types. We know we've reached a certain point with the technology of the current consoles where you just can't program any more logic for players. And one of the things that they're really trying to focus on is some of the little nitty-gritty details. And talking with the FIFA guys, I get the sense that, and they've never spoken to me about next generation stuff, but just talking to them about what they can do with the current generation. I have I don't know if, not that I necessarily have faith, but I certainly expect, based upon knowing how passionate they are and how hard they work and how well they know the game, that a lot of this new technology is going to give them a lot more ability to do things that they've wanted to do for years but have been hamstrung by the because they've gotten a lot smarter and better at building the games, but the technology has not changed until now.
It's interesting for me because I've loved FIFA the last few years more than maybe any other series. And in that sense, it's hard for me to imagine, like, okay, here's how they're obviously going to make it so much better for next gen. Now, I can go down a list of ways Madden could be improved for next gen. Obviously NBA Live can be improved.
Go ahead, Lloyd. Let's hear that Madden list, by the way.
Madden,
I want to hear this. I guarantee everybody listening wants to hear it too.
Yeah, Madden. Obviously you have player movement, player models. That's a big part of it. Artificial intelligence is a big part of it. The crowds.
Are you talking like blocking? Like when you say artificial intelligence, what are you specifically referring to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interaction between quarterbacks and wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean just
blocking.
The CPU, how they handle an offense, the plays they call, even just those kind of things.
Okay.
But then graphically,
Sure.
the crowd needs help ever since they went to 60 frames per second. You need animated sidelines. You need better crowd sound. You need, just that emotion. Like, I'm a season ticket holder. I go to Seahawks games. I've been to every one for 10 years, and I've never felt that feeling playing a game of Madden of actually being in the stadium.
I don't disagree with any of the things that you're saying. I've heard people talking about atmosphere in sports games really forever. And again, from the FIFA side, I think it's different. I've been to Premier League matches. I've been to NFL games. It's a very different thing, right? The action never stops in a soccer game. The crowd is constantly engaged, whereas in an NFL game, the crowd is not constantly engaged. It is a very different experience going to an NFL game versus a Premier League game. What are the? I'm just really curious, like specifically, what kind of atmospheric things from a Madden game are you hoping that this Ignite engine?
Okay, so things like fluctuations in crowd noise. You have to add that dramatic element to it. You have to feel the pressure of the moment. You don't do that in a video game. Even on 4th down and 15, people just go for it.
Well, here's an interesting point. In one of the trailers, they actually highlight RG3 in New Orleans, where the crowd is going crazy. So it certainly seems
Mhm.
like that's something that they're going to try to do. Now, is it going to be a glorified version of the squiggly lines in NCAA,
See,
or is it going to be something totally different?
that's kind of gimmicky, right? But it got across that
But
the crowd has an effect.
yeah,
And then not just even the crowd, but if you look at NCAA football, really its biggest deficiency to me has been just player emotion, how players interact after a big
hmm
play,
yeah,
those kind of things. Again, it's about the drama that's been missing. And some of those games have gotten moments really, right on. Like FIFA does it at times. NBA 2K does it quite well. NBA Live 10 had the best crowd I'd ever heard.
yes,
It was,
you're
I mean, the
absolutely right.
atmosphere in that game, and I'll tell you, there's a split opinion on NBA Live 10 and NBA 2K10 because NBA Live 10 was incredibly fun to play because of that dramatic element. 2K has
hmm
improved their crowd and the atmosphere since, but really that almost still stands out as the best, one of the most enjoyable atmospheres to play a basketball game, and especially during the playoffs. I mean, it was wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that you notice, I mean, and I play sports games literally every day, right? Like, just today I played 2 games of my career in NBA 2K13, and on any given day I'm playing either Madden or NBA or NHL, and there are cut scenes where, like, after an overtime win in NHL, the guys are piling on top of each other, but when I score the goal, then my guy will celebrate for a second, and then he'll stop, and then everyone will skate around, and then they'll cut to a cutscene, and all of a sudden
Yeah,
everybody's piling on each
it's
other.
not
And
the same.
it's not a
Yeah.
knock on NHL. I'm just saying, like, clearly the technology doesn't exist for them to really have a lot of that literally instantaneous dynamic player emotion.
Well,
So
it's like we talked about our most dramatic losses on
yeah.
the most recent podcast.
By the
So
way, I got so much amazing feedback about
uh,
people loved that part. It was
yeah,
great.
so my story was about how I lost on a Hail Mary tip ball. It was very reminiscent of that Texans Jaguars game.
Yeah.
The CPU Saints threw the ball down the field, it tipped off someone's hands into Henderson's, and he walks in for the touchdown. That's as time expires. They win. He walks into the end zone, stands there looking at the crowd like, I just did it, and then drops the ball, and that's it. It's the same exact,
Yeah.
touchdown celebration that 90% of the plays end in, or whatever. And that kind of that hurt, but I mean, it didn't change the drama of the moment. But man, it could have
Yeah.
been so much better if there had been
And
some wild celebration following that.
and I think a lot of that, and I've spoken with developers about this as well, because like one of my other big pet peeves for years has been championship
Mm.
celebrations or lack thereof. Um, NHL does a fantastic job with their Stanley Cup celebration, um, but and not just championship celebrations, but like you say, end of game celebrations, or you score an old overtime goal, whatever. Some of it's technology, and some of it is priorities, and those kinds of things tend to always sort of get lowered on the priority list. Does the Ignite engine help things like that just become easier to do? Hopefully, because those are things that, as great as things may be happening from the moment the puck is dropped until the goal is scored, or until the snap to the snap to the whistle, that post goal scoring moment, that post snap moment, is really where you're taken out of the immersion of almost for in your brain, you're almost kind of like, I'm in this game, I'm doing this thing, and then all of a sudden, oh, because the players are walking around like
Where's the
robots,
payoff?
or
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
exactly. So, will the Ignite engine change any of that? I don't know. It certainly seems like at least part of the focus of that is going to be on that.
yeah. I hope so. I said on Twitter today that I think as I've gotten older, I appreciate the atmosphere and the emotion and that drama again, maybe more than just about anything else. And so when I saw the three kind of tiers of what the Ignite engine's doing, the one that stood out to me was the living world. So I'm hoping that's what it delivers.
And
And if it does, that's a huge. I think that's a huge deal.
agreed. And I get. give credit where credit's due. Like the FIFA World Cup games, I think have
Oh,
tremendous atmosphere.
I love them. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love those. I mean, that's just kind of a sign of, and there's still even room for improvement there, but it's kind of a sign of what they can do
right. When
when
they
they see it
focus
as
on
an
it,
important element
absolutely.
of the
Yep.
sport or of the game. Yeah,
Yeah, the World Cup games feel very different than the regular FIFA games,
and that's
and
how
I
I got
think
started on really playing FIFA was World Cup.
right. Yep. I love those World Cup games. I'm
Oh,
looking forward to the next one.
yep.
All right, so now the big one, NBA Live. We
Mm.
still know nothing about it other than the fact that it's going well. We probably shouldn't call it a fact, even
Yeah.
though people are saying it's going to come out. But I mean, reputations are now on the line that NBA Live is going to come out and it is the next generation title. We have some listener questions a little bit on this, so we'll reference back to that. But you've heard it. You've heard EA commit to NBA Live. They got up on stage today, talked about NBA Live. What's the deal? Brian Weed Eye from Pasta Padre, what's the deal with NBA Live?
They have to release it this time. If they don't, they're done. They have no choice. So
We
even if
said
it
that
was
last
not
year, though.
ready, they're going to release it. The last two times they've canceled it, I've predicted they were going to cancel it or that they should cancel it rather than
Well,
put out
yeah.
a bad game that turns people away. Now they have a chance here in next gen. It's kind of a fresh slate. There are surprisingly, just a couple days ago on Twitter, I asked people, what would you think of, NBA Live as next gen? What if it was with just Microsoft? And there were enough people saying that I would be upset if it was Microsoft exclusive, or I'm ready for something different than 2K. That there are actually those people out there, and there's still people who remember NBA Live for kind of the good days,
Mm-hmm.
because
I played it every year.
at least they didn't release. I know they get a lot of criticism for canceling, but if they had released NBA Elite 11 or NBA Live 13, they'd be in a much worse spot right now. They would
Well,
have
they
pretty much no chance.
yeah they knew that it wasn't going to work,
Yeah.
right?
So they're not the goal right now, and it hasn't been the last two games. The goal isn't to come out and beat 2K in sales or in quality. I mean, they just have to establish that, hey, we're back and we're here for real this time, and you better start paying attention to us in the next couple of years. That's all they have to do, is establish a little bit of credibility here. And I think they can do that by going next gen, because people are going to give it a chance. There's going to be enough people that have bought NBA 2K14 for their 360 or PS3 that may question, well, why do I really need to buy it for this next gen? We don't know what 2K is doing with their next gen game, but they have to find a way, to try and sell it to those people too. Now, there might be enough, consumers who say, well, I'll give NBA Live a chance here. I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, again, that'll probably need an impressive demo to really sway anybody, though.
Well, I mean, I think there are certainly two types of people. There are people who literally know nothing about the history of NBA Live and its recent struggles, and they're just going to go pick up the game because, as we've talked about, there are for all of the people like us and the listeners and the people who visit and read Pasta Padre every day and who read Operation Sports every day. For every one of those people, there are 20 people who buy video games who don't bother or don't care to, just aren't aware of what's going on. And that's really, I think, where a lot of the NBA Live initial buyers are going to be. Um, I find it fascinating that EA has basically just said, okay, we're going next gen on this. We don't, as you mentioned, we don't know what NBA 2K is doing. We do know that NBA 2K is an absolute powerhouse. Arguably the best sports video game on the market today. Press Row Podcast, Sports Game of the Year. And I think this may be the only way to go for EA Sports with NBA, because they have an opportunity now with new technology to really sort of pursue something that they didn't have a chance to in the last couple of years. So I think it's a smart choice. Whether or not it works out, who knows? But
Yeah.
boy, man, I just get worried with the cuts and of workforce and with the reallocation of people across it. I'm worried that this game, of all the games, this is the one that has me worried the most. And I so desperately want this to be a good game. I'm
Everybody
not a
really,
cynic.
everybody should. I mean, if you are a proponent of competition,
Yeah.
why not have a second game? You don't have to buy it. Why not have a second quality game? Even if you're a huge 2K fan, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
It actually can push them.
Yep.
And I've changed my original tune on the exclusive license back in 2005. I was naive at the time. I thought the exclusive license was going
We
to
all
push.
were.
Yeah, I thought it was going to push. Now there were enough people. There were enough people who thought that it was going to be a terrible situation. But I thought, look, exclusive license, only game on the market is going to give them a chance to be more creative and take risks. And it turned out to be the exact opposite because of the control of the NFL. And then you have to market your game and offer features that appeal to kind of the widest audience, which means sort of a bland product, which we had with Madden for many years. Even when it wasn't terrible, it was just bland.
I don't think it's bland anymore, though.
It's not. It's not
Okay.
anymore because they had to reverse course on that.
Yeah, and I know, and I don't know if you've heard the shows or not, but in the last couple of years, I've had long interviews with the Madden development team, and they are not resting on laurels. They do care. Whether you like what the output, what the results are, is a totally different thing. But anybody who is out there who thinks that the Madden team or the NHL team or the NBA 2K team or the FIFA team, none of these guys are sitting around, unless you're talking MLB 2K. None of these guys.
Probably the two people that worked on it probably worked their asses off. So
they all work their asses off.
Yeah.
If you are building video games, you are working your ass off. You are not getting paid a whole lot of money. You're working days, nights, and weekends, and you are during crunch time not ever seeing your family. Long story short, nobody in the sports video game industry is sitting around resting on their laurels. Again, whether you like what they're doing or not is completely.
Hey, and when did NBA 2K get really good? It was when NBA Live started to get really good.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, there's precedent here that says
Well, and hey, FIFA has competition.
FIFA got good because of Pro Evolution Soccer.
Absolutely.
NHL got good because of NHL 2K.
Yes, I mean It's so funny because I've been playing sports games forever, like everybody has. I didn't even play NHL for years because NHL 2K was so good. There was no reason to play NHL. Now, I've always been a FIFA guy, but I'm also not a soccer aficionado. And all of the aficionados that I know were all Pro Evo people up until the last 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So the competition, I want more sports games. I want competition everywhere. I guess my point is just that people in recent years, none of these guys have been resting on their laurels because they can't afford to, because the only thing worse than having competition is having no competition and your game not doing well. Because that is
MLB 2K.
Bingo.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about let's just get into some listener questions, right? I believe we've already been talking for close to an hour here. It's craziness. So let's talk. Yeah. Let's get some listener questions.
Are we going to talk some about the used game situation and stuff with the console too? I think.
Oh, we can do that. Let's do that.
Because this is what I got a lot of people wanting me to bring this up, because that's where and also how it affects sports games, because we've kind of discussed this previously, that blocking used games or charging a fee to play used games, kind of the online pass method that spreads to the whole game, probably affects sports games less than most genres, because it's a short shelf life for sports games. Mm-hmm. Most people want it on day one. I mean, if you're picking up a used copy of Madden 4 months in, you've kind of missed the boat on it. Mm-hmm. So what you have now is this big backlash, because it's still not even clear. Microsoft is being intentionally weird about this. They're not clarifying, but they're saying they're clarifying, and they're saying they might, nothing's set in stone, even though Microsoft execs are saying certain things that you would think are set in stone at this point. So you have a situation where it sounds like what's going to happen is you get your copy of the game, and it's almost as though everything is now digital download, and then also the disc. What the disk is just kind of like the distribution method of your digital download. You install the disk. The console requires games be installed to play. Then
Hmm.
you don't need the disk after you install it because no one else can use that disk unless they pay a fee, and that fee is probably full price of the game. And then your copy stops working. So if you sell a copy to someone else or give a copy to your friend, they can activate it like it's a new game on their console, but yours gets deactivated. And supposedly they have some way to trade in, or I don't think they said sell, but trade in used games through them. We don't really know how that's going to work. They're saying we'll tell you about that later, as everyone says the world is ending because of this used game situation. Uh, that plus you do need a connection to use the console. It doesn't have to be connected continuously, but apparently if it drops out, if you lose your connection and you don't get it back within 24 hours, you can't do anything with it. You have to check back in. It's kind of like that PC DRM method of checking back in to make sure you've still got an activated copy. So that's where we stand right now. And there's a lot of questions like, what if I have multiple consoles? I can't play the game on both. Yeah, probably not. You can use your Xbox Live account that the game is tied to on someone else's console, but they can't install it on their console. It's going to be really confusing. And the thing that I think Microsoft is pushing this away right now, deferring to later, because I think Sony's going to have the same stuff. But Microsoft is thinking like right now, why should we take all the heat for this questionable practice that people aren't happy about when Sony's going to get away with it in a few months when people find out it's with them? That's my theory on it. But I'm curious to see what you think of like the used game situation, because to me, I don't think it impacts sports gamers quite as much. Although who doesn't? At least I sell my sports games after I'm done with them and get $20-$30 back. That goes towards buying the next one.
Yeah, people do not like my opinion on this stuff. I've heard enough feedback to realize that. But hey, look, I am, I have my own issues, not issues, my own opinions about this. I am so ready to be purely digital.
Oh,
I
you're killing me.
I have a Vita, right? Everything I have on my Vita is all digital. And it's not about anything other than the fact that I was on a plane today, right? I flew from Orlando, the Orlando airport. I was in Kissimmee for a conference for 2 days to Philadelphia today. And I played 4 games on my Vita on the plane without taking anything in, taking anything out. I played a game on my road to the show. Then I played a few Zen pinball matches. Then I played Sly Cooper. And then I played Plants vs. Zombies. And I did it all without doing anything other than, okay, I'm done, and clicking and tapping. Right? It's awesome.
That's a portable system, though, man.
No, I understand that.
At home, you don't need it. I don't need that.
But I have a PlayStation 3 with a bunch of digitally loaded games through PlayStation Plus, and it's the same thing. I sit on my couch or my chair and I'm playing a game and I stop and I zip out and I just click on another one. I enjoy, and on my phone, for crying out loud. I mean, everybody has an iPad or an iPhone. It's like you get in and you get out. I am so ready for it. What that means to me is that I'm going to buy a lot less games.
Well, that's what I was actually going to ask. I was going to say, I know I've talked to friends of mine. I know myself. There are games I would not consider necessarily because I don't want to shell out the full price because I'm not confident in it.
Exactly. And that means I will buy much less games. I will buy all of the sports games that I buy because that's what I do and what I love. But instead of buying 10 or 20 or 30 games in additional games a year, I might buy 2 or 4 or 6. That's what that means. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It's neither. It's just going to change the behavior. But what I'm hoping, and this is pure hope, is I've talked about it on the show, is I'm a big fan of Steam. Steam is spectacular. It is purely digital. They have sales all the time. Like, there are great games that go on sale for $2, $3, $5, $7, $10, $15. It's the virtual equivalent of a used game without it being a used game. If they do this right,
Oh, and you expect them to do it. They're not.
I didn't say I
Yeah.
expected. I
Well,
said
that's the problem.
I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
If they do it right, because one of either Sony or Microsoft is going to. I mean, Steam has laid the blueprint for success. There's a reason that Steam is dominant and rakes in millions and millions of dollars because they have made it super easy and super simple to play hundreds of games. And they have great sales. And they're just, everything that they do is smart. I will be stunned if Microsoft and or Sony don't ape that service completely, especially for older games. It won't be that way at the very beginning because they won't have a catalog. But 12 months, 18 months, 36 months, why would they not say, you know what? That Madden launch game is now $10, or this game that came out, in January of 2014 and it's now, June of 2016 is $5. And or they have a service like PlayStation Plus where you sign up and you get deep discounts and or free games or things like that. See, what I'm hopeful for is that we get out of the mindset of the physical copies of stuff. And I do the same thing that you're talking about. I get piles of old games and take them down. And that the new way is actually a better service. That's what I'm hoping for. And I base it all on looking how great of a job Steam does.
Well, this is what they're trying to do, is they're trying to ease people into that. I mean, you can't just go from physical media to requiring digital downloads, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying they're going to, but
yeah. So this is the in between. This is
ham-fisted.
You're essentially removing used games to where the point is, well, why not just buy them digitally then?
Right.
And then the next thing's going to be, how do people react when we find out these games are $70 or $75?
Well, but that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
That would be the wrong way to do it. That's why I keep talking about Steam. Steam does it right.
Yeah.
Steam has hundreds and hundreds of cheap games. And
I'm an Xbox guy over the PS3, but I don't have any faith that Microsoft is going to take that track.
Their history does not suggest it. If anybody's history suggests anything like that, it's Sony with their fantastic PlayStation Plus service, which is another reason that if it weren't for the online sports leagues that I'm in, I wouldn't even touch my Xbox because of the great service I get from PlayStation Plus and all of the excellent free games and the deep discounts. That has to be the model. If either Sony or Microsoft does it and the other doesn't, the one who does it is going to win. Absolutely going to win. And I cannot imagine that with all of the competition out there that they will not do something like that. But I could be wrong. I could be absolutely wrong. I mean, Nintendo is not doing it.
Yeah, well, look where they're at.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
You would think they'd be like, all right, you know what? Let's put 15
By the way, this could be
NES games.
Yet another reason that EA, is shying away, and other third parties are shying away from Nintendo, is they don't have this system set up where they're going to be able to start pushing people that direction.
Yeah.
So that's the excitement of the day since the event. We had to talk about it. Enough people wanted to be mentioned. So
I'm excited. I love the fact that we have so many people that wants to talk about stuff. And again,
that was a ton of people today. So that's awesome.
I just know that I enjoy my current digital world. I love Steam. To me, it just makes
it's a dramatic change for, I think, a lot of people. It's easy to think of where we're at because we're we keep up on the technology and stuff. There are a lot of people who don't, and this is going to be a kind of a shock to their system.
Oh my God, yeah, and that's when I say that I'm ready, I get the fact that millions of people aren't ready. Just because I'm ready doesn't mean it's the way to go. But we all have to look at it from our perspective. And the perspective of my son as well, who's getting into gaming, and I want digital media for a very different reason for him, because I want to know what he's playing when he's playing it, and I want to prevent him from playing stuff he's not supposed to play. A total quick aside: I was on the plane today. The guy sitting next to me had his iPad out there, and he was looking through a whole collection of books, and he's like, "Man, I love this because I can see exactly what my kids are reading, what books they downloaded, and when they did it. I'm like, I want the same thing for games because my son is 5 now. I mean, I completely control what he's playing, but
Well, there'll be a day where that's not the case.
and it won't be that long.
Yeah.
It won't be that long. And again, this is me personally talking about what the impact is for me. I realize there are millions of people out there who could care less about that, but me personally, that's what I want. All right, let's look at some. Let's do some listener questions. Cedric VZ says, what do you think about NBA Live only being next gen? I think we talked about that a little bit, but I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, I think we both agree it's really the only direction to go.
Yeah, they didn't really have much of a choice here. They would have had potential for more sales short term on the current gen if they could actually get people to buy into it, but I don't think that really would have been possible going up against 2K, and then where do you go from there after that? I think it has to be a next gen. You have to really concentrate on that direction.
All right, next one from Brian Menord. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Discuss how Sony's stock rose today, and if you think it had anything to do with Microsoft letting everyone know they are charging to play used games and non-compatibility for the 360. Yeah. That's something we didn't mention about is that the Xbox One will not be backwards compatible. To me,
that's a big one for some people, and then also the bigger one for other people is that you have to have Kinect plugged in at all times for it to even work.
Yes, I am anti-Kinect. And I want to make sure we touch on the backwards compatibility too. I have successfully navigated through this entire generation without having a Kinect. I hate motion controls. I don't.
It's all right for voice controls though, and that's I think where they're going with this.
I don't even want to do voice controls because I have a son who's running around. I have a wife who's calling me, to say do stuff. Like and I know I'm an old man, okay? I'm okay with a controller and with pressing a button to turn on a machine.
Did you see the story? See the story today about how during the actual watching of the Xbox conference on the console, that things that were being said were causing their stream to pause and all that stuff, and it made me think of. I had to unplug my Kinect when I was playing Madden because there were things the commentators would say that would, and then it'd call a timeout for me.
Yep.
I can't deal with that.
Yep.
So hopefully they've improved on stuff like that. But as far as the Sony stock, I know that was mentioned. That was up 9% today. I looked into that, and it was actually unrelated. There's talk of them spinning off their entertainment division. And that's why they're profitable entertainment division as opposed to their electronic division. And so that was unrelated. Microsoft stock was down 60 or 0.66%. There wasn't much movement in terms of the stock market.
Well, it's funny because now, scouring the internet, the sentiment has turned very anti the Microsoft reveal today, at least from the many of the opinionated major gaming websites. So backwards compatibility. Yeah. Again, I know my opinion is unpopular. I don't care.
It never mattered to me either.
Okay, and the reason I don't care is because my Xbox 360 won't magically stop working the day that I get the Xbox One.
See, do you not sell anything, man?
I
at some point, I want to sell this stuff at some point to recoup some of that investment.
What are you going to get for an Xbox 360?
I don't care. $80. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Well, but this is a great point, right? Like I have no interest in selling my 360. First of all, I'm going to be playing Grand Theft Auto 5 when these systems launch, and I'm not going to be doing that. But I've never cared about backwards compatibility. To me, a new machine is a new machine, and I want to play the new games on that, and I keep my old machine for the old games, and I'll be able to find Xbox 360s for years and years from now afterwards. So
if it wasn't a niche audience, both Sony and Microsoft wouldn't be ignoring it. So I think I understand why people want that,
but I also I totally get it. It would be nice to be able to just take an Xbox 360 game and put it in the Xbox One and play it. It would be fantastic. Nobody would complain if they had backwards compatibility. On the other hand, it's not, to me personally, a non-issue. All right, up next, Mike Duque. I apologize again, as always, for screwing up the name.
I'm going to ask people to come up with more creative names to make you struggle when you read these things.
Do you guys think all the news about Madden 25 for current carries over to the next gen version, i.e., owner mode, etc.?
You're saying
So
you kind of said no, right? I say yes.
I'm I don't know what I'm saying honestly because unlike Madden NFL 25 for the current generations, which I've had on the I did 3 1-hour interviews this week with the developers. I know a lot about it. They've given me nothing on the next gen stuff. I I don't. I gotta believe that there's going to be a lot of the features in it, but I doubt that it will be as full fledged with the side things, and I think they will concentrate more on the field gameplay. Which, if I were running the franchise, I would do that as well. I'd be like, let's have franchise mode, or let's have some version of connected careers, connected franchise. Let's make sure we have online play and online leagues, but let's focus on making what's happening on the field as awesome as possible with this technology. So that's what I would do.
I have trouble believing that they can come out yesterday and tout, hey, we're bringing back everything you guys ever asked for back, and then take it out for the next gen, and then in 1 or 2 years say, hey, guess what? Owner mode's back in next gen. I don't think they can get away with that.
But on the other hand, they're like, look, we've got this amazing full-fledged deep system on the next gen consoles. I mean, on the current gen consoles, and on the next gen consoles, we've got a game on the field that is the best thing you've ever played, and that's what we focused on. Like, I would be okay with that messaging because, frankly, that helps them sell both games, right? If I think I'm going to get
there's got to be something different about it, right?
Right. So, but I will find out. In the next 21 days at E3 or something like that. So, all right, next one from Josh Lurcell, or Lurkel. I'm going to go with Lurcell. Boy, I'm really sorry with this. The rental one I asked earlier. Also, who thinks the gaming market with Xbox slowly starting to fade only entered?
So he was asking, as we were talking about used games earlier, he was asking what does that do for the GameFlies and the red boxes of the world, and my first thought when we heard about kind of the breakdown of how used games were going to be handled was maybe they'd have something like a trial period. Remember the first online pass had a 7-day trial period.
Yeah.
And then they trimmed it down to 2, and then they got rid of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to do that. It sounds like just to install the game to be able to play it, you have to have the code. If it's already been used on somebody else's console. So I think essentially those rental places are fine for the next 2 to 3 years. There's still still going to be a demand for 360, PS3, maybe Wii U or whatever out of those outlets. But yeah, it's going to be tough for rental places really to survive. I don't see how, unless they're giving you like a trial period, which they haven't said anything to indicate that. I don't see how those places are even going to offer you rentals at all on these.
Yeah, I think the traditional way of renting video games is going the way of the traditional way of renting movies, which is shrinking and eventually non-existent. And I know I keep saying it, but my hope is that the new way is, while it sounds scary and different and perhaps anti-consumer, that actually the new way winds up being better than the old way in the long run. Whether they make that happen or not, I don't know. I don't rent games anymore. I haven't rented games for years, but clearly millions and millions and millions of people do rent games. I
rented MLB 2K13s.
Yeah.
So I could finish it in 8 hours and take it back.
Right. I mean, and
that's it.
So from a personal standpoint, there's very little impact. But then again, it comes down to the fact that I just played a lot less games than I used to. I used to rent games, and of course, it comes down to what's going on in your life right now. Like I play sports games almost every day because I'm in the online leagues, and then I travel, so I play a lot on my portable. So but I don't have any other free time to play games, whereas a lot of other people do, and renting games makes a lot of sense. So, and then of course, like I'm buying even less and less. Like I bought BioShock Infinite when it came out. I played it for 3 or 4 hours, didn't really like it, and I know I'm going to go, or I've been telling myself I'm going to go back to it, and I haven't.
Guess what? You bought that digitally. You're stuck with it, buddy.
I'm still stuck with it. It's still sitting right here because I keep telling myself I'm going to play it, but that's a good point. That's a good point. but it's also the reason that I buy very, very few games anymore. So I don't know. The world is changing, whether we like it or whether we don't. The world is changing.
Hey, we're gonna evolve. We're gonna evolve with all this stuff. I know that. It's just there's gonna be some growing pains here.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not
Yeah.
saying we have to like it. It's just, we have to face the facts. I mean, industries change. Look at the newspaper industry. Look at the music industry. Look at the television industry. I mean, things are changing dramatically for all sorts of different media, and games are no different. And some things work out better for consumers. I mean, 5 years ago, I can't tell you how many people I talked to. They're like, yeah, I really don't watch TV anymore. I pretty much watch everything on Netflix. Like 5 years ago, that people were like, what?
It wouldn't make any sense.
Make sense, right?
HBO Go and
What?
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, 5 years is not that long of a time, and the behavior of a vast number of people has changed. Meanwhile, the behavior of a vast number of people has not changed.
Yeah.
There are many, many, many people who still like, oh, my favorite show is on at 9 o'clock on Thursday. I better sit down in front of the television and actually watch it. Like, to me and to you, that's probably insanity.
That's how CBS gets. That's how CBS gets all their ratings.
That's right. But I mean, other than a live sports event, there's nothing that I ever think about. Oh, this is on. I have to sit down and watch it. But just because we're that way doesn't mean many other people aren't that way. So, and that's another one of the challenges of the video game industry. Like, there are millions of people who don't have access to the internet, or are not connected to the internet, or don't have broadband, who just want to buy the new Madden or the new NBA and play it, and are going to have. There's some real challenges out there. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. Why is hockey being left out?
Yeah,
Great question.
I got questions about this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about it, but I was thinking about it, and part of me is kind of okay with this. Just because I'm going to assume that NHL 15 will come out on the next generation consoles. We know NHL does well for itself, but it is not anything like a FIFA or Madden in terms of the number of units that it moves.
Right.
And sounds like they're just doubling down on this year's game on the PS3 360, and they'll have the team gravitate towards the next generation stuff for the following season. I would love to see a next generation NHL game. I'm okay with that. If we remember, the next gen NHL games when the consoles launched last time were literally nothing more than a little bit shinier version of.
Well, there was NHL 2K. NHL from EA, I believe, skipped a year going into the generation. So,
yep.
So yeah, it's not only just the limited sales base that they
smaller team too.
Yeah, and then they have something concrete going well for them on the current gen. Correct. I mean, if NBA Live had come out the last 2 years on the current gen systems, I don't think there would be a next gen for NBA Live right now either. So NHL can continue working on what they have going good for them right now, sell that to the current gen install base, and concentrate on making a kick-ass game for next year.
And it's a great game, by the way. I mean, it was my personal sports game of the year last year. It's a wonderful game, and I can't wait for this year's version. Well, I can wait, but I'm excited for this year's version of the game, too.
Yeah. So I just don't think there's the demand to double up on NHL within a 2-month period.
Yep.
So
yeah, I think it's probably a good decision for everybody, including gamers, right? Because I think we'll probably wind up getting a much better version of NHL next year than we would have this year. All right, Joe Doyle asks, would love to know if absolutely any of these titles will be release launch titles so sports fans have some immediacy. And I think we all agree that if not all four, well, if
UFC we know no, right, but yeah, the other three are most likely launch day. And I think we'll probably know that for sure either at E3 or soon after. They're not going to announce it. They still don't want to kind of overshadow the current gen games, so they're not going to make a huge deal out of when that's coming out. But it'll slip out at some point. Which ones are, and it's probably going to be the NBA, the FIFA, and Madden on release day, and because those. Again, those will have already been out on the other systems, so waiting doesn't make much sense. They want to grab during the current season. They want to grab people as early as possible.
Right. Ty Drewski says, what's going on with NBA Live? Are we going to see games? We talked a lot about NBA Live, but he does ask a question we have not discussed, which is, will we see it at E3?
By the way, this could have been, I like this tweet because it could have been a tweet from like 2010.
It's evergreen.
Yeah, this could have been sent to me in 2010, and I just hung on to it. Are we going to see play at E3? I don't think so. I think it's probably too early at this point. They really started going downhill in terms of, the media started to get on them after they're showing at E3. Now, it's possible they show something behind the scenes. That's what they did last year. I don't think there's going to be much, if anything, shown to the public, though. I could be wrong. If they're really confident with it, they could show something. If they're not so confident, they may be better off waiting. But I have to say this. They were confident last year, and it was a disaster, so who knows? Their
tweets exude confidence.
This year or before?
Yes, no, this year. Their tweets, they've been tweeting, and they ooze confidence.
Nothing does more than the way they talked about NBA Elite 11, and then last year with NBA Live 13, it was the future of basketball. So I don't think they've exceeded that quite yet.
Good point.
Yeah. So there, shut you down.
All right. Will NBA Live make a good enough comeback against 2K?
See, that's what I'm talking about. Look, we've got so many people interested in NBA Live. These were just a couple of the questions about it. Will it make a good enough comeback? I think if you're comparing the two games, and you're just going in, there may be a reason to buy NBA Live over NBA 2K, but obviously you have to, all things being equal, you have to give 2K the nod there. I don't think Live's going to exceed it in quality right off the bat.
All right. Well, believe it or not, we've been going for close to an hour and a half. It is time to wrap it up. We are going to be recording a full show, Press Row Podcast, tomorrow for publication on Friday. But we wanted to make sure that we talked a little bit about it this evening. So before we go, just wanted to make sure that we mentioned go visit pastapadre.com. Brian again continues to amaze us by posting stories every single day of the year, no matter what. It's amazing.
For like 7 years now. So that's 6 years. Yeah.
You don't have like a robot doing it. You're actually the one pressing the button.
No, I do it all even when I'm on vacation.
It's amazing. Yeah. Also, make sure you visit Operation Sports. They power the Press Row Podcast and has an amazing community. The forums, everybody knows it is the place to do that. Also, make sure that you subscribe to and rate the Press Row Podcast. Every little bit helps. And a major announcement right now, we have just been added to the Stitcher Radio Network. So for all of you who use Androids, for example, and
awesome,
and want to listen to the Press Row Podcast, we are now on Stitcher Radio. It's very exciting. Very happy about that. And I didn't realize, honestly, how big a deal Stitcher is. That is a big deal. So we're very, very excited about that, and we'll have more information on that coming out in the next couple. So with that, this in the Press Row Hangout with Brian Weedeye from Pasta Padre. I'm Rich Grisham. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Make sure you listen to the Press Row Podcast. It's generally every 2 weeks, but lately it's been a lot more than that. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Take care, everyone.